Hello, and thank you for tuning in. And this is the second part of Where's the Beef? And for the first segment, we learned that the problem with our cattle decreasing in number is it's partially because of the droughts. We would say that it's partially because of um, the ringworm. But and you were with me as I went down this thread, and but the main reason why is because of oh yeah, and then also they had the ranchers had to sell their heifers. But the main reason why is number four. It's because of greedflation, and that we're learning how chances are those foreclosures will be more or less permanent. Not all the time, and there's a restructuring in the meatpacking companies, Tyson, and that there is a monopoly there, and that's the American way. So we learned that in the first segment, but that's just the preamble for what we're going to get into here. All right, um, so pretty much, and it says like to kind of recap, it says by permanently shutting down plants, the big four meat packers eliminate a buying location. With fewer plants open, ranchers have even fewer choices of where to sell their cows. This actively suppresses the price paid to local farmers, forcing them to accept whatever low price Tyson offers at the remaining hub plants. And so are you serious? Like so I predict that's to drive these people to the ground. Like they want them to foreclose to a certain extent. And so that's can go this can go in two ways. One I see like this major overhaul of an existing order. You second law of thermodynamics, we're a product of nature. That's what nature does, it destroys to create something new. And the people who benefit in this case are gonna be not the meat packers, not the ranchers. And the other scenario is, well, it'll be it's 50-50. You're going to have less ranchers and, you know, but I just, why would you accept that? You're still, it's like, then where is the other cows coming from? Well, it's come from overseas, so we'll see that, So, and it cuts into your freedom, right? Doesn't it? Isn't it? You're dependent on, okay. So we already went into that for the first segment. So this is the second segment. Your prediction is correct. The pivot to cheaper overseas markets. So that's where, okay, your intuition about importing cheap meat is the exact strategy unfolding right now. The corporations are actively anticipating a reality where they do not need to rely on independent American ranchers to supply the meat. Now think about it. That's small. So let's just say, so big business is consuming small business. So if anything, just walk away from this with that. Take that home with you. Oh, okay. Well, you learned something. A lot of us already know this, especially people who are in business. Man, my stuff is for people who have small businesses. But I usually I am targeting people half my age, and I'm targeting especially creative people, artists and stuff like that, because we're supposed to have a voice and anyways. Well, I should be painting right now, and I'm doing this. Um, the global arbitrage strategy. The White House announced an emergency plan to temporarily slash tariffs and so it's like what who would it's like so if you're like, oh wow, okay, you got rid of our tariffs, so we're going to trade with you, but then it's temporary, we're going to slap you back on these tariffs after we don't need you anymore. This is for any other nation, any international audience. Tell the United States to fuck off. Yeah, I'm an American, I'm here, I mean, okay, fine, but seriously, you know we all should be tired of this. The global arbitrage strategy. The White House announced an emergency plan to temporarily slash tariffs and import 30. Well, now we have a number. 300,000 metric tons of cheap beef over 90 days from countries like Brazil and Australia. Australia? I was saying Argentina, but wasn't it Argentina uh, originally? So I'm like, wow, I pull the wool over my eyes. So that means that this is bigger. This is, oh my God, that's what this is, right? Here we're talking about, originally beef from Argentina, and then here is 300,000 metric tons of beef, cheap beef, over 90 days from countries like Brazil. Brazil, Brazil, yeah, and Australia. So this is bigger, and so they're a part of this. This is a conglomerate, big ass thing, isn't it? And Tyson and other major processors mix this cheap. And what? Oh, so you get this. Okay, I should finish the sentence. Imported foreign meat with American beef to manufacture things like ground beef. So think about this, people. What if the stuff that they're importing us is not even 100% beef? It's not 100% beef. It's meat. Ew. And then you have people saying that, like, it's human meat. McDonald's is suing us human meat. And there's like stuff that I hear. It's like, I don't get into that, conspiracy. But then once in a while, I hear something saying that. I'm like, well, I should look into that, you know. But anyways, but anyways, right here. But the thing is, we don't know what meat that is. What other animal or what part of the cow, if it's even indeed a cow. From Brazil and Australia. Why they're panicking? Why are our independent ranchers are panicking? Well, duh. American ranching groups like the National Cattlemen's Beef Association and the U.S. Cattlemen's Association are fiercely protesting this import plan. Of course, they should. They should have been helped by us. And and here's another thing: when we have to pay taxes, it'd be nice to see give us a fucking receipt. For my taxes, I want a fucking receipt. If I'm doling out money, I want a receipt as to for what I'm buying. Okay, and so if on that receipt it says, yeah, you'll be an X number of your taxes will go towards these ranchers. I go, I don't eat a lot of beef. I tried being a vegetarian one time and I want to get back into that. It's really hard, because I'm kind of lazy. I admit, it's like, well, okay, reach for a quick chicken sandwich or whatever. Or, I'm an Italian, so I have a salami. I make a salami cheese sandwich. I'm an Italian man. It's a struggle, but I'm just saying, still, this is like screwed up, and so, uh, you know, uh, so they're fiercely protesting this import plan. They warn that inundating the U.S. with cheap foreign meat will completely crash the prices paid to local family farms, ensuring American ranchers never have the financial stability to rebuild their domestic herds. Never have the financial. So that means this whole thing about, oh, it'll be better by 2028. Yeah, it'll be a whole different system. Doesn't matter where the material comes from, the matter. And it's not even beef anymore. We don't know what it is. It's mixed with beef. So that's an idea. Hey, let's have X number of ranchers to exist to supply us with X amount of real 100% beef, but then we're gonna mix it with all this other weird foreign shit, and then we're gonna sell that off as beef. Yeah, yeah. Okay. The southern border reopening. The U.S. government just reopened border crossings in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas to What about the ringworm? What about the ringworm? What if that was an exaggeration? So now we're getting these mixed reports. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I am the one on this channel to question everything. All right. So you're saying that, oh well, it's just because of Mother Nature, and we have these ringworms coming in from Mexico. We shut the border, and so yeah. So now they're allowing these Mexican cows to come here, and so if you have four legs, You come on down. But now ICE is, doubling down on deporting more Mexicans. So I mean, this whole thing is fucked. You know what I'm saying? And so, okay, so now you're gonna reopen the border, like for these cows to come in. So what? Did the ringworm mysteriously disappear? Oh, we contained it just like that. Well, then why is Trump fucking? Why are they going to do this with getting this meat from not just Argentina? Now we're going to get it from Brazil and Australia. If we can get all this shit from Mexico. So then what is this thing with the ringworm? Why is it so like why is it so gone to where you can reopen these things and you get back your 1.2 million heads of cattle from Mexico? No, come on, man. You see what happens when you start investigating and digging the dirt. That's what I'm doing here. I'm digging the dirt to find the places where we got hurt. Okay, I'm digging in the dirt to find the places where I got hurt. So so like I'm like I want to know what's going to happen. So what are we anticipating? This corporate restructuring does not point towards trying to like depopulate things, which I might have threw that in one of my questions because I kind of shut down further because I don't want to make these videos so long. Mm. So depopulation does come up, which I do think that down the line that's exactly what is needed or wanted. As we've already looked at how the charter city. Imagine I call them charter city, sanctuary cities, but like charter cities. And so you have like these bubbles of society or civilization for people that can contribute with assets and money, and then the rest of us live like fucking troglodytes. And so it's not like they'll kill us, but it'll just kind of like it's harder to. I mean, because they're not gonna fucking fix these the sanctuary the sacrifice zones that Chris Hedges talks about. I gotta get that book and talk about it. I have it somewhere. Um, so you know what I'm saying? So here, check this out. So the corporate restructuring does not. Okay, this is what it is. Instead, it is a structural preparation for an economically fractured population. This is so wordy, and it's like it's the same fucking thing in a way. But this is where I wanted this to focus on. Tyson, comma. Now it comes. Now the next word comes in here. Private equity firms and global businesses like the global like Packers and shit. Global, are anticipating a permanent two-tiered consumer society. Wow, that's like what I tell you. Watch my other videos. Watch my last three recent videos. I think they're the last two or three. Come on, man. Some of you got to be with me on this. Am I the only one here? Am I like the voice crying out in the desert? Uh, the luxury tier. They assume a portion. They assume a portion of the population will remain wealthy enough to pay $15 or more per pound for premium, locally raised American steaks. The mass market tier. For the millions of people falling through the cracks, corporations are moving away from local cattle entirely. They are restructuring to feed the general public an increasingly industrialized, highly processed diet made of imported foreign meat, blended proteins, and heavily automated mass-produced mass market foods. So and so this is before you have like this like walled in charter cities, and then like you have the shittier places for people like us to live. So like I was comparing it to like Ready Player One and that. But that's further down the line where this is like right up in our face because you're gonna have like BTR and then you're gonna have like those people who are renting and those people who are owning and they live in the nicer parts of town. They'll buy these $15 steaks, but the rest of us who are like on the outer skirts and who are just like you have to have a bunch of people share an apartment or whatever. You're gonna get this shit over here. All right. And that two level thing, the luxury tier versus the mass market tier, that's going to increase more and more and more. Where when things really collapse, and then like by that time, they're going to open up these these Venus project from hell cities. So they're restructuring to profit off a world where regular working class citizens have significantly less buying power. You know, let's continue. Now, there's something that I was completely side sideswiped by this. I had no idea about cool, and cool stands for the country of origin labeling, and it is one of the biggest battlegrounds in the food industry right now. So it is the exact mechanism corporate meat packers use to hide the overseas pivot I'm predicting, allowing them to pass off cheap foreign meat as American made. So here's a loophole. For years, Tyson and the Big Four exploited a massive legal loophole in the U.S. food system. Remember, these laws are made for them. It's a loophole. It's just you can fucking do whatever you want. You can. The law declares that the sky is yellow. It's like okay, you better. Yeah, it's yellow. Okay, here's your credos, and so you can go buy food. Uh, Okay, so the old rule, if a meat packer imported a shipping container of cheap beef from Brazil, brought it to a U.S. facility, unpacked it, and simply cut it or repackaged it, they were legally allowed to slap a product of USA sticker over it. The result, consumers thought they were supporting local American family farms, but they were actually buying cheap imported corporate meat. This directly hurt local ranchers. That's another reason why these ranchers have to fucking sell their fucking heifers. Wow, right? So the crackdown, how corporations fight back. Ooh, because independent ranchers and consumer advocacy groups fought for decades against this corporate deception, the rules have finally changed. The new born, raised, and slaughtered standard, a strict new rule, mandates that the product of USA label can only be used if the animal was born, raised, and slaughtered and processed entirely within the US. That sounds okay. It sounds fair, right? The corporate evading tactic. To get around this, corporate meat packers are simply changing the wording. Instead of using the official flags label, they use confusing, highly technical alternatives on the back of the packaging, like processed in the USA with meat sourced from, and then you have a list of countries. Or they omit the country of origin entirely on certain processed foods. You blend, foreign meat, and you blend this meat into hot dogs, chicken nuggets, and cheap ground beef tubes where labeling laws are looser. So that's the tubes that make this. It's like that Pink Floyd, the people become like this ground meat. So it's like these tubes ground. So it's like it's like meat directly into hot dogs, chicken nuggets, and cheap ground beef tubes where labeling laws are looser. That's what it looks like to me. Why this matters for the big picture. By watering down or bypassing origin labels, global corporations ensure that consumers can't tell the difference between a steak from a family farm in Nebraska and beef imported from a massive corporate ranch in South America. This labeling shell game is the final piece of the puzzle. It allows corporations to shut down American plants, import cheaper global alternatives, and keep charging you premium American. That's another thing, they keep charging you more. The prices don't go down, and you're not even getting what you're paying for. And like food, I mean, if you don't eat, you know what I mean? You are what you eat. It's like food is not like some luxury. You know what I'm saying? Shit. And I'm like J Rock, you know what? That's too many times. It's too many times you're saying, what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? That's too many times. Too many times. The Department of Know What I'm Sayings. Well, but you know what I'm saying. American plans to import cheaper global alternatives and keep charging you premium American prices at the grocery store, all while keeping the public completely in the dark. So I'm talking back and forth with the ChatGPT, we're talking about clarifying that it's 18% drop and all that. And so I'm saying, and I was saying, like, I'm saying that there's we're not going to get the beef count up again, and then they're going to, it's going to be reopening those factories that they closed. So what's happening is, basically permanent, right? And that's what I was predicting all along. Uh, to answer to answer your point directly, yes, you are completely right. This restructuring is permanent. There it is. Okay, there it is. Those closed places are not reopening. Even if the cattle numbers eventually drift back up years from now, the business model has fundamentally changed. You see, that's I have a nose for this, and so now we're seeing the particulars unfold. So this is how the permanent shift will unfold in three specific ways. We might as well go over them, right? One, the plants are permanently dismantled. When a giant like Tyson just restructures and closes a facility, they don't just turn off the lights and lock the doors. They actively decommission it. They tear out or relocate specialized processing machinery to their central hubs. They put the real estate up for sale to be repurposed for entirely different industries. He's like I said, right? I was right about that too. They put the real estates up. Okay, what is it? Okay, once a town loses a massive multi-million dollar processing infrastructure, it is economically impossible to simply flip a switch and bring it back. And then you have another sacrifice zone because these people aren't working anymore. Shrinking domestic footprint. As I noted, it says, as you noted, um, we are not going to see domestic cattle count return to what it once was because the economic incentive for local farmers has broken down. Because the administration opened the door to massive cheap foreign imports, corporate meat packers now have a permanent safety valve. If American cattle get too expensive, they will just dial up the imports. Local ranchers know this, so they are not going to take on massive debt to rebuild their herds if they know corporations will just undercut them with Brazil. For that. Okay, the jobs aren't coming back because Tyson is actively replacing them with technology. Yeah, robots and shit. The money Tyson saves by closing older plants is being funneled directly into building hyper automated robotic facilities in the central USA plant in the central USA. That's where the that's where you got to read the books by Chris Hedges. Those are the sacrifice zones. A plant that used to require 1,500 human workers will be replaced by streamlined facility that requires a fraction of that. Okay, because you have automated shit now. Isn't that what Amazon's been doing in their warehouses? They have these robots and shit. I mean, I had a student in my drawing class because before I got let go, and talking about politics and drawing, which I know that was kind of a problem, but I was just wanting to get people to be aware. I started getting students want to talk to me at the end of class, and so this one guy, this neat guy, he's kind of neat guy. You can tell he's above average, kind of curious looking guy. He couldn't really draw that good, but I helped him get better, and and then he was, I like what you were saying and all that. And then he started defending his job at Amazon, like, well, actually, I'm glad I can work there and all that. I go, man, you're super young, all right, and you have no idea what's happening. And I didn't know either because all this is like now, and I'm talking about something that I conversation I had like 5 or 6 years ago. It's like, so you have read this situation perfectly. This isn't a temporary pause or a cyclical dip that will bounce back in a few years. It is a permanent corporate migration. The meat, and this is just meat, but then if this is happening with meat, it's happening with everything else, people. The meat industry has used this agricultural crisis to permanently lower its reliance on American labor, reduce its reliance on American ranchers, and lock in a globalized automated supply chain that maximizes corporate profit at the expense of local communities. It's not about communities and it's not about you. there was like a little hiccup between me and ChatGPT. So I was asking like, what kind of picture are you painting for the future? And then I kind of farted on me saying, well, I can't. It says they couldn't help me with that request because they can't make images. So I had to reword it and say, no, I meant, I didn't mean paint a literal picture. I meant with words describe what's going to happen. What does this mean? What kind of a future is to come? I didn't mean paint a picture by, I just meant paint a picture by way of analogies. That's what I'm telling it. But just describe it in words. Paint this picture by describing it in words of what's happening. So here we go. The future you are describing is a transition into a highly segregated, or what I'm insinuating, and it's describing a segregated, corporate-owned, two-tier society, like I was saying. And so it's not going to be you wake up tomorrow morning and you see like these Venus Project from Hell cities that are walled off from the rest of the world. It's going to be uh, like when you gentrify everything, prices go up for renting, and it's gonna be harder for people to buy houses. And I did an older video where it's like, yeah, they're phasing out this thing where average people can buy houses, and so that's where this goes in. And now this thing with the food and the meats, now we're getting artificial, like we're getting a fake beef, or we're getting this shittier meat, which we don't know if it's all beef or not, coming in not just Argentina, Brazil, and Australia. We're now, we're so, but where does this go? Where will this logically conclude and lead us to in the future? It's going to be like those Venus projects from hell. So it's going to, because right now it is saying right here about a transition into a highly segregated, corporate-owned, two-tiered society. And it's funny because I was talking to Morris Berman on his blog like 5 years ago, or something like that, and I told him this, and you know what he said? He says, "Oh, no, 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 you're jumping the gun." I hope he remembers me, because I go, I go, well, I still like your books and all that, but I think I'm right about this. And then we stopped talking to each other. And you know what? I'm right. He's right about everything else, but I'm right about this. And I think that he was threatened because, like, who's this unknown artist dude from Arizona? It's like, how could he know something that I don't know? I'll call you out, Morris Berman. Check this out. I was right. I was right. And I hope that he didn't like delete that blog. It wasn't like, we're arguing. I was saying I even had links, and he just dismissed it, like, because everyone is politically correct, especially people on the left. Stop being politically correct. Come on, call it the way it is, and count your losses for doing so, please. Okay. Economy, the two-tiered consumer system. Society is fracturing into two distinct economic worlds, and corporations are permanently changing their business models to match it. The luxury tier. This is the top 20%. Premium locally raised American beef, single-family homes with yards, and human-crafted goods are becoming exclusive luxury items. The wealthy will live in secure, high-end areas and pay exorbitant prices for authentic and organic American-made products. The mass market tier, the bottom 80%, and without the 80%, you couldn't have the 20%. Think about that. And your children are going to be part of the 80%. I don't care who you are or what you think you are voting for and why you're voting for it. I don't care. I don't care how many jobs you're working now to get out of what you want to get out of. If you're an artist, the only thing you have left to do is to paint, like Silver Dolly. Oh, painter, paint. You fucking paint, 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 paint. People like me, I paint, but I'm also reporting this shit. I'm doing this shit because I think I got a flair for this. It's like a gift. Because I stumped even Morris Berman. He was like, oh, no, that ain't happening. That was 5 years ago. Look at it now, dude. I was right about this. He was just being cautious, being politically correct. So here it is, the mass market tier for the bottom 80%. So for the majority of the population falling through the cracks, daily life will be heavily industrialized and streamlined. Boy, I'm glad I don't have kids. I'm glad I'm not putting kids in this shitty. And you can't. Oh, I'm going to escape and go somewhere else. You ain't gonna be able to escape people. They're coming after you. It's like an atom bomb explosion and the fallout. And you're driving. You're racing. You're racing from that. You're racing. Eventually it's going to catch up to you. In a manner of speaking. Because we're not doing anything about it. We're not getting organized. We're not getting organized. We're too unorganized. And this is all I could do. Like, I'm supposed to go to work in a couple of hours, and I didn't paint today. But I go, well, this is my sacrifice to put this out there, and I'm really glad, I'm grateful that I can do this. And so I'm taking advantage of what I'm capable of doing. And I think you can just oblige them by watching this content and vetting it out and like tell others, yeah, this is now I'm kind of see where this is happening. It's so because everyone, even everybody's just attacking Trump, which rightfully you should. And then I tend to like go after the people who support him. And rightfully I should. But that's why. So you remember my videos? I started out with the boys. It's put up by a corporation, and you see Homelander, what he symbolizes. And after Homelander is, I hope I don't ruin it for anybody. You should still watch it. He winds up. Homelander is the devil. He's horrible. So after he's gone, the corporations who make him live on. And so that's why I'm subconscious. Like, wait a minute, Homelander is like Donald Trump and all the shit that comes with it. And so now we got rid of Donald Trump and all the shit that comes with it, and yet the corporations that created that is still intact. As a matter of fact, it's even stronger than ever. So that became the starting point of all these videos. And without me knowing, it all goes back to my whole talk about Homelander. And then da 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 da. It's just weird. This could be a fucking novel or something. This is insane. A movie even. This is insane what we're seeing here. So that's the mass market. Tier the bottom 80%. Okay, 2, the workforce, the elimination of the working class foothold. That was once the American dream. That was Make America Great Again dream. So get rid of that. The permanent closure of factories is the opening chapter of a massive labor restructuring driven by the AI and automation, which a lot of people have been talking about anyways. The death of the good legal labor job. Historically, a person could get a tough physical job at a plant or factory and earn enough money to buy a modest house and feed a family. Those stepping stone jobs are being permanently erased. And this, we kind of, okay, anyways. The rise of the algorithmic gig worker. And I've mentioned this before in public, work is shifting away from stable corporate employment towards automated contract-based gig work. And that's like your food delivery and your Uber. And I've done that. I was an Uber driver. Delivery, basic maintenance, and tech monitoring. Human labor is treated like a temporary utility, plugged in when cheap, and unplugged the second a machine or an overseas supply chain becomes cheaper. That's it, right? Housing and land, the permanent rental society. The real estate left behind by closing factories and struggling farms isn't staying empty. Like I predicted, I sniffed this out. It is being repurposed to fit the new corporate landscape. The subscription way of life. Private equity firms and BTR build-to-rent developers are creating managed communities where you own nothing. Instead of buying a starter home and building generational wealth, which is what we should be able to do if you believe in America, regular citizens will rent their homes, rent their tech, and pay subscriptions for basic needs. That means if you speak out, you don't like it, they can turn all your services off. And if money will be Bitcoin, you won't, like electronic, no more cash. That's where it's headed, people. Corporate land monopolies, as small farmers and local businesses go bankrupt from being squeezed by monopolies, their land is bought up by giant investment funds. Land is transitioning from a source of independent community livelihood into a corporate asset balance sheet by the corporate assholes. Okay. Four, politics. The Band-Aid cycle. Politicians will increasingly use short-term dramatic maneuvers to keep a lid on public anger rather than fixing the underlying broken system. Remember I was saying, like, Trump, he should have been helping the ranchers bring their cow head up, the cattle head numbers up. But no, that was not intended all along. So masking the symptoms. When food prices or housing costs um, get too high and threaten political unrest, administrations will temporarily lift tariffs, reopen borders, or inject short-term subsidies. The illusion of protection. Leadership will continue to preach populism, like Trump, he's a populist, and promise to bring back jobs, which he has not, people. He has not. He has not. He has not. But behind closed doors, they will quietly enable global corporate networks because it keeps baseline consumer costs low enough to prevent outright rioting. So here's the summary, the new landscape. The picture of the future is not a sudden dramatic apocalypse. Exactly. And I was talking to a friend last night. No, I don't know about the apocalypse coming. It's more like this, it pushes us into the future. Gradually, the change is happening. It's like you take a frog. You know the story about the toad or the frog. You put the frog in the cool pot of water. You turn on the fire of the stove, and eventually the water gets a little bit more warm. The frog doesn't jump out. If you put them in hot water, it jumps out. Tepid water, it stays in there until it gets warm, and then you wind up cooking the frog. Well, guess what? Rivet, rivet, rivet. That's right, man. You're a frog. We're frogs. Rivet. So, and ironically, I'm dressed in green. Mess, man. Who can make this stuff up? I don't script all this. The only thing I script is the content, and I just go into it. And here I am dressed in green. I'm talking about frogs. Okay, it is a slow, quiet slide into a world where independent self-reliance is replaced by corporate dependencies. That is not freedom. That is not America. What is that? And meanwhile, you have like assholes like Trump and all his fucking cronies on Fox News. The communists, the socialists. They're horrible again. Horrible. It's horrible. So it is a landscape where a small group of consolidated global entities own the land, the housing, the automated factories, and the food supply chains. They don't need a massive, thriving American middle class to operate. That's what I was saying. They are getting rid of the people or a certain class uh, uh, to operate anymore. So they are simply restructuring the world to manage, feed, and rent to a population that has lost its leverage, its economic leverage. So this is how I want to end it. I decided to say, let's look into some, science fiction comparisons to what this is. Like for a short story, So it's like, so we have like these are some of the matches that this is comparable to. Uh, so you have like it's called Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. So this was written in 1993. And so it basically is similar in such that we have a crumbling America. Regular citizens are forced to live in heavily fortified, walled-off suburban communities to protect themselves from chaotic outside violence. This was written in 1993. The corporate angle: massive, unregulated global corporations actively step in to build private company towns. You see, and that's what we've been talking about for the last couple of videos. And this was written in 1993. They buy up land and offer desperate, displaced people jobs and housing. But the catch is that the workers are locked into permanent debt, essentially becoming modern serfs. It perfectly mirrors the modern shift towards BTR corporate communities where you own nothing and rely entirely on the company for survival. Here's another one. This is for the two-tiered society type of comparison. Oryx and Crake. The Mad Adam Trilogy by Margaret Atwood. This novel captures the extreme physical and food-based segregation between the rich and the poor. The comparison. The world is explicitly divided into two physical zones. The elite scientists, corporate executives, and billionaires live inside luxurious, heavily guarded, hyper-sterile corporate compounds. Inside, they have access to top-tier healthcare, clean, whole foods, and immense wealth. The rest of the world outside the walls live the general public, whom the elites dismissively call plebeians. That's plebeians. The the plebeians are chaotic. The plebe. It's called the plebe. The plebeians live in what's called plebe-land. The plebe-lands are chaotic, dense, and falling through the cracks. The people there survive on cheap, heavily processed synthetic foods mass produced by corporations. It perfectly mirrors a luxury versus mass market tier structure. And you know what? That's what I predict, and there's no way out of it. I don't think there's any way out of it. And now it's a challenge. I'm putting the gauntlet down, so you all have to prove me wrong. It's going to take like 40 or 50 years, but you guys all have to prove me wrong. You watch my videos and you say, we gotta challenge this fucker. You know, because I'm saying there's no hope. There's no way to get rid of this. You know? So what are we gonna but this is in the hopes that we literally change destiny. We break free from the fixed stars of our destiny and say, no, I will change what all the chips fall, what they may, saying the opposite. We're gonna create a whole new thing that upsets your theory, Sergio. But anybody yapping now? No. You're like, I have so many. Yeah, you can use like AI to make money, and it's just like, yeah, I'll do that, but that's not going to solve the problem. That's just so I can put food in my mouth. It's like, no, this is not going away, is what I'm saying. Okay, okay, the best match for the corporate control of daily life, The Space Merchants by Frederick Pohl and C.M. Kornbluth. This is a 1952 satirical sci-fi novel. 1952 predicted the greedflation and total corporate monopoly. 1952, here's a comparison. In this future, massive mega corporations, specifically giant advertising and agricultural conglomerates, have completely taken over the government. The world is entirely designed around consumerism and corporate. That's fascism. They become the government. The reality for regular people, the working class is legally kept in a state of permanent debt to the companies they work for. They live in tiny rented corporate apartments, and the food supply is entirely engineered by corporate monopolies who manipulate prices and supplies at will to keep the population compliant and dependent. Boy, if you live in South Korea or Japan, or even in parts of China, isn't that what your life is like? You live in a really small compartment. I've seen videos, so it's like that's already happening, and they're all people. It's like it's already happening in the world right now. All right. The core theme in all these stories, just like in the real world trends with Tyson, private equity, and automation, the dystopia isn't caused by a mustache twirling villain, Snarly Whiplash, plotting to destroy the world. No, instead, the nightmare happens simply because massive hyper greedy corporate entities are left completely unchecked to pursue profit, gradually locking the rest of humanity into a system where they are stripped of land, assets, and economic power. And that's where the thread ends. So it was 45 minutes into this, and so, have a good rest of the day.